and is the person in charge of the current system. So we're very happy to have you. I really appreciate your filling in. So now let me share my screen and we'll get started with the official presentation. Hopefully all the bugs are okay. And so we're here to talk about Achieve, which absolutely stands for nothing. What we want to accomplish. It is not an acronym.
Good.
It is it is the name that we came up with for this new system. It's a new statewide system for Iowa IDEA, so Individuals with Disabilities Education Act data on our IEP and IFSP development. And I'll go over those acronyms in a moment. This work links most closely with the state board priority to eliminate achievement and opportunity gaps. This is our beautiful logo for Achieve, Achieve Iowa IDEA. And I'm going to go just briefly over to review some terminology. I'll try very hard not to use the acronyms and the slang, but it's pretty much embedded after being in this business as long as I have. So we have in the law of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, there are many parts, but the parts that are most relevant to school services is Part C, and that's known in our state as early access. And those are the services we give to kids birth to 3. And then there's another part of the act that's the main part of the act, it's Part B, and those are the school age services. And in our state, that's from 3 to 21. And I see I lost a letter on the next one. IFSP is an individualized family service plan. And that's what teams develop for early access services or Part C services for kids who are birth to 3. An IEP is an individualized education program, and that's school age 3 to 21. And then I might throw this one around a little bit, OSEP, our Office of Special Education Programs. They're our federal oversight agency at the Department of Education. I think those are the most of the acronyms, but Janelle and Brad are going to kind of help spot check me if I tend to start getting into that special ed speak. And I know this is a workshop, so stop me at any time if you have questions about something or need any clarity. So we have a statewide system for IEP and IFSP development. It was launched in 2005. And at the time it was written, it was cutting edge. We were one of the first states to go. We were actually the second state to go have a system that was statewide. It's now, however, written in a language that they no longer even teach. So it was time. I actually had on here a picture of a Game Boy. And I did the presentation for a different crowd and they're like, what is that thing up there? So I took the Game Boy off, but basically technology advanced. We started looking at, we knew we had to do something to update the current system. And when we looked at everything, we just decided to build a new system because technology has advanced so much since 2005. So we decided to build this new, and when I say we, the department in partnership with the AEAs decided to build this new system. So this slide has 5 bullet points that we've had lots and lots of stakeholder input from the beginning of designing this to conceptualizing it, to designing it, to developing it, testing it. And the dreams that people had in talking about the new system are these really the main things that we've kept in and intentionally that we really wanted to help teams really think about designing the services. So in Iowa, we have a framework for special education where we talk about diagnose for instructional need, design for instruction, deliver for engagement, and engage for results. And so we've done that because over the past couple of years, we've really fallen back into a compliance mode of let's make sure that things are documented, and we've lost our focus on the actual instruction and the individual. And we believe that will make our specially designed instruction more effective. So that's our refocus on that. The second bullet there is talking about systems, maximizing system functions to support practices. We have a lot of paperwork in special education, which I'm sure you've heard about, and we are trying to minimize that. We have systems now or technology that should be able to do some of that so teachers don't have to. We also in this design have tried to figure out ways to increase the opportunities for teams to collaborate and communicate. In a little bit, I'll give you examples for each of these and a screenshot, and then we'll end with a demo. We've also are using, there's a lot of compliance data we have to report to the feds, and we're going to try to use this system to collect most of it as much as we can and minimize people time or people resources to collect those data. And then our big coup here, I think, is we're going to have one system from birth to 21. So you may not be aware that the early access services, the IDEA is written in such a way that other state agencies can be the lead agency for early access. Iowa, the Department of Ed, is the lead agency. And that's really a benefit to us because it ensures continuity for those services from birth to 21. But in the existing, my computer is about to restart. Of course that would happen. Well, I think I can snooze. Yeah, that's hilarious. The birth to 21 system. So while we had everybody in the current system, there's some laws about the transition. If you're moving from birth to 3 to the 3 to 5 services, that our systems weren't interacting well. This new system will be seamless. And so that's awesome. Okay, come on, go away. Well, we'll go as fast as we can. So here's what we're doing in statewide implementation. Early access will go live on April 15th, 2022. So just a few weeks away, really. School age, we're giving districts opportunities. They get to select which month they want to go live. So they can go live between May 1st or September 1st of this next fall. And all of the IEPs, IFSPs must be in Achieve by June 30th of 2023. We're providing a lot of professional learning. There's 2 types. One set of professional learning is just about accessing or using the Achieve system. That's all online. The only thing that's required in that training is that first one that's italicized, Welcome to Achieve. An asynchronous module where people can learn how to navigate the system. And then the system will also include in it professional, in the Achieve system, there'll be a professional learning system. So if a teacher, say a teacher gets a student that they don't typically work with who maybe has some behavior needs, and they want to know more about a behavior intervention plan, they can just click right in that system and get the learning around that strategy or tool. There will also be user guides and tip sheets for people like me who like to read it rather than watching it in video. The second piece of type of learning is a refresher around practices. This new system, Achieve, has some wonderful functionalities that our other system did not. And so we want to be able to have people benefit from that. And I'll show you an example of that in a minute when we talk about about progress monitoring. The content or the training itself will be in these areas: evaluation, early access, preschool, IEP development, behavior, and secondary transition. This is what I will say for me is almost a once in a career opportunity that we're going to be reaching every special education teacher and administrator at the same time within a series of months with the same content and training information. So it's a huge opportunity for us in the state. All right, so here's an example. This is a screenshot of an example of what I mean about how we are building into the system, how teams we can support designing the services and systems. And you can't, when Lisa gives the demo, you'll see it much better, but the system is really fluid. It's a network, it's not linear. So, for example, when I write an IEP, I really like to start talking with the parents about what they're thinking and where they're seeing. And that's something that's really talks about strengths. Other people, you might have a meeting where you come in and you know you have a concern, you want to modify a goal. This system will let you start at any place in the system, depending upon the needs of the team. The other system, or the current system that we're going to be calling the legacy system, will, it's antiquated, so it's linear. You have to go through everything to get to the place you want to go. The other piece about this is because it's so fluid and flexible, it allows people to really get to what the individual needs. Many times, unfortunately, we have folks writing an IEP goal so that they can measure it, because the system only does it in one way, which gets to my second point. The maximum, we're building functions in here to support practices. In the past, if you're at all familiar with special education, much of the goals were written to be accomplished when they had 4 data points above a certain line or 4 at a certain place. Well, that could take 2 or 3 months, and you might not even be teaching it, or you might use a rubric to measure this. And you'll see this when the demo goes on. This system will let a teacher really, I'm gonna be so out. Okay, I'm gonna go real quick. Get ready, Lisa. Collaboration, I'm going to mention here, we're going to build a family portal. We'll be the first system in the country that has access for families where they can see real-time data on progress. That'll be launched a little bit later next fall. This is a big one. If you look at that data on the bottom, that's our B13 data. These are data that OSEP requires us to report on the percentage of IEPs that have met the requirements for secondary transition. In our state, you can see that big dip between 2015 and 2016. We were using a 5-year cycle where districts came up, and what we learned is that they knew we were coming, and so they doctored their IEPs. So in 2016, we went to a statewide sample, and you can see we dropped considerably. We use a lot of people resources to review thousands of IEPs to collect these data. People who would otherwise be secondary transition services. We now will have this collected by the system. It will be basically a fill if the information's in the right places and there's some connections that are put in there. We anticipate being at 100% once everybody is in this system. And this is my example of the one system, birth to age 21. There are a number of things that are transition requirements within the Part C or early access that we'll now be able to do in the part, just smooth between that transition between C and B. And I made it to the end before my computer. Now, so I'm going to stop sharing. And Lisa, why don't we pause and ask if there are any questions before Lisa shows the demo?
I have a question.
Sure.
So that for the family portal portion of that, will that allow family members to kind of communicate back and forth? Or is it just something where you can track?
No, it's somewhat interactive. We have had a lot of feedback and input on whether or not there should be an email concept in there. And what we decided is that we didn't want to reinvent systems. So there's a push. So this family can send a note that says, please contact me. Or they could, and then the IEP facilitator will go back and contact the person. There are a number, in fact, we just met with our family engagement folks this week and showed them some of the graphing capability that they'll be able to see the real-time data. And the question came from them, can we add our own notes? So this new feature allows teachers to say, they can add a note to a data element that they were off a little bit, or they had some seizures right before the probe test, and so the family asked if they could add their own data. And so in the short-term answer right now is no, but maybe but they can send a note to the facilitator and the facilitator could add it. Over time, we can see how that might become more interactive than we already have it designed.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. Say, are all the fields required on this program for Achieve, or how do you know that people will 100% complete the new system?
So there are, it's a combination. So 2 different levels of answers, I guess. First, this is the system that we use in the state. Everybody in the state is used to using one system. So that's a requirement really that we have the authority through our general supervision responsibilities to do, if that was the question. The other piece is in the system itself, there are a series of combination of optional and required. So it depends upon whether it's something that we are required or authorized to require to have in there. And some of it is just optional because that's what our staff or our input from stakeholders has been. This is helpful. We like this piece. For example, one of the things that's available in there is a tool where teachers can progress monitor multiple students. That right now, if they're going to do any entering any progress monitoring data, they have to go into each individual student's IEP to add that. So you can imagine just the time to go in and out. Now they can set up a worksheet, I guess, where you can have 10 students that they can enter their data all at once. That's an optional thing. You don't have to use that, but it's a tool that we think people will find very helpful.
Thank you.
Any other questions before Lisa does the demo?
Just, yeah, you would mention the amount of paperwork involved with IEPs. Is this going to help streamline that? Is that the goal? Because I know
It's our intent, right? It's our hope. It's really our hope. And so one of the ways, for an example that we're doing with that is, and I apologize, I cut you off.
no, it's fine.
Can you tell I'm excited about this product? I apologize, please. You started to say,
Well, I know that teachers have an inordinate amount of time completing IEPs under the current. So
yeah.
it's probably a learning curve, but I'm not sure. Once they're past the learning curve, will this be better for them as far as more effective and efficient? I know you mentioned they can enter multiple data.
I can tell you that we are going to be evaluating that. We are in the process of hiring an evaluator who will help us identify whether or not we are cutting down time on paperwork, what is practice time. And I think, Lisa, maybe are you planning on showing the data history page?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so one of the things that we've done is this, and I didn't mention, is this system is going to be able, so the source of truth will be the Student Information Center, system, so Student Information Center system. And then it will connect with, say, the panorama data. So the student success data, there are data elements that will come in from other systems, so teachers won't have to go look for that. It will also make the data available from previous times. Are you doing tagging too, Lisa?
I wasn't going to, but I certainly can.
Well, let's hold on that. I'll just try to describe
So
it.
some of the
Okay.
data will be pre-populated into the forms.
Yep, pre-populated, as well as right now in the form, you can write something in one place and then you have to repeat it someplace else. Now, if you put it in one place, there's a function where you can tag it and it will load into another place, so they won't have to repeat anything with that. You ready for the demo?
Will teachers
Go
be
ahead.
required to do it both on paper and electronically? Because I know like with the medical records, they were required to do that for the same time at some
Nope.
point. Okay.
They don't. They will, for a while, they will have to be in both systems. They'll have to be in the legacy system and the Achieve system. So that will probably be a struggle for the first year, but what our testers are telling us, so we have a lot of teachers who are testing this for us, they say that once they get past maybe their second or third IEP, it's very intuitive. And so we think people will move into the system faster. But again, every district is different in how they handle these. So we're giving a lot of flexibility to districts about kind of how they handle the entry into the system. One thing we want to avoid is if everybody, so coming into Achieve, they'll stay in the legacy system until they do a new IEP or they do a new evaluation, and then they'll do that in the new system. One of the things we want to avoid is bulking up a bunch of IEPs in the new system in the same month, because then there's a requirement that you have to do a review within a year. So then the system would always be clogged every year in that month. So we still want that distribution across. Makes sense. Okay, Lisa.
All right. I will share my screen here. And Barb, you can see my screen, I'm assuming.
I can.
Awesome, thank you. Barb has actually mentioned several things I was going to mention, but I'm just going to kind of share that excitement as well. Many of the things we're looking forward to with Achieve are obviously the intuitiveness, non-form filling. You know, right now we fill out an IEP online and it prints out basically the same. And Achieve will be very different because of its intuitiveness. There will be dynamic questions based on individual responses, and I'm going to show you some of that. And then fewer open boxes, more tables, and efficient displays of the data to make it a little more family friendly and user friendly, because we know some teams will pull up the system on a screen and walk parents through and write the IEP as they're holding their IEP meetings. Barb kind of mentioned this. We are going to integrate with several systems. So there will be integration with I3, which is our Iowa IDA information system, Student Success, and then SIS, which is the Student Information System, which Barb also mentioned will be the source of truth, which we are also very excited about. All right, so I will begin the demo here. What I have now, and I just want to clarify, this is a test site. All of the student information and children information is fictional, so you don't have to worry about any live data being shown. As users log in, they're going to be taken to a dashboard, and on that dashboard at the top, you'll notice there's a to-do list. On this to-do list, there will be interactive based on actions that are taken in the system. So for example, if I have an IEP that's coming due, that's going to show on my to-do list. If maybe I haven't scheduled a meeting yet, or I've done disability suspect, but I need to do an evaluation. Those things will show up on the user's to-do list based on if they are the facilitator or a provider on that IEP or IFSP. They can also take actions from that to-do list, so they could reschedule a meeting as an example. And then they can add to their to-do list. So if I wanted to add information to my own to-do list, I have the ability to do that. And I can also show it on a calendar within the Achieve site. So I'm going to scroll down just a little bit here. I want to show you the calendar first. So I'm going to kind of jump around, so I apologize for my scrolling. At the very bottom of the screen, there's a calendar. So now when users schedule meetings, those meetings will automatically appear on their calendar, and then they can click within that calendar on a learner to maybe reschedule an event, add participants, request a excusal. They could also do meeting roll call, which would be at the meeting, documenting all the people that attended the meeting. All right, so they'll have that functionality within the system, which we're very excited about, because as you know, I am sure right now people have multiple different calendars. There is the ability, or we're looking at the functionality eventually to be able to interact with Google Calendar, iCal, and some of those, but right now they'll have a calendar within the system. Okay, I'm going to scroll back up here, and I apologize. The user I'm logged in as actually works with both early access, so there's birth to 3-year-olds, as well as special education. So you'll notice I have quite a case list here. So I have an early access case list, which goes here. I have the ability to search for learners. So if I'm searching for a particular learner, whoops, sorry about that. My screen just goofed. Okay, there we go. So if I'm searching for a particular learner, I can type in a few letters, and then the system will pull up that learner for me. And off to the left here, we call this the kebab, the 3 dots. It's a new word. We get used to it as we go. I'm always like, kebab, what is that? But if you click on the 3 dots, you can be taken to many different places within the system based on where the student, the learner, or the child are. So for example, if this child is within evaluation, so I can do evaluation, or I could start a periodic review. So it's all based on the status of the learner in the system as to what you can do within this kebab. Okay, so it's kind of a shortcut, if you will. You can also sort by these lists on the case list. So if I wanted to, there we go. So if I wanted to sort by last or by name, I can click on this and it'll automatically resort. If I want to sort by date of birth, it'll sort there. You'll notice that there's an annual date, a reeval date, because now I'm in special education. And so I could also, if we had reeval dates within the system, we could go ahead and sort by those as well. And if there's no reeval date, obviously it'd fall to the bottom of the list. All right, so it's very interactive that way. I heard Barb mention multiple progress monitoring. That is something I personally am very excited about, because as Barb mentioned, in the current system, people have to go through so many steps to get into and enter data for each individual learner. So in Achieve, they'll be able to click on a link that says progress entry multiple, and it'll automatically, it's going to default to where I'm a provider, goal provider, or they could choose all. If they work with all learners in the building, they'll have an all ability to view all those learners, or just where they're the goal provider. And then they'll be able to enter data. So if I were wanting to enter some data here, I could enter the date, the value, monitoring notes if I want, and then I'll click on Save All. And once I save that information, then I can move on to the next learner. So it's, when I think of this, I think of especially support providers as well as teachers, how much time this is going to save them. They have the ability to sort by district up here, building, grade, or goal area, and only the goal areas that are present. So if they don't have a goal area for communication, that wouldn't be an option to sort by, because the system knows that there are no learners within that filter, if that makes sense. They also have the ability to just enter search information. So if I wanted to search on math, then it'll pull up just the math learners. The school nickname obviously is new, and we'll be training on that, but that's really going to be a benefit to them, because if they nickname goals, then they can sort by that nickname, and they can filter by that nickname a little bit easier than sorting by a learner. It might be beneficial for them to sort by reading or math as an example, or whatever they choose to nickname. And I feel like I went really fast through that piece. So if you have any questions now, I will take them, and then I will keep going and walk you through a few screens on the IEP to talk you through the intuitiveness and the linkage between systems.
Do they get, and you may have already answered this, but like notifications via email? You said, I think they had like the task or goal list. Do they reminders or like a?
Yep, there's a bunch of notifications in the system. Lisa, could you hear that question?
Yep, I did. The notifications within the system are going to be via the to-do list, basically. We went away from emails because of personally identifiable information. So the to-do list will be that notification piece, if that makes sense. And as we release, we'll start to get feedback on what some of those items may be that people want added or maybe removed, because some might be a bit much, if that makes sense. So we'll take feedback on that as we go. But so far, right now, it would be the to-do list would be where they'll get their notifications.
Yeah.
All right, I will keep going here. I've actually pulled up a different screen. I'm actually going to take you through an IEP student to show you some of the interaction and some of the embedded information. So you'll notice that I'm on Wilma here, and I'm on their learner management screen. It says learner management at the top. And there is a caret here that I click on, and this actually shows me the information about the student. So a state ID, the date of birth, their resident attending information, as well as parent information. This information comes from the student information system, so the SIS system. So the state ID will come from there, as well as the name, date of birth, resident attending district, the grade, and the age obviously will calculate based on their date of birth. And the parent information will come as well. All right, so as I scroll down, this is their learner dashboard. And you'll notice here, it just shows that I'm the facilitator of this learner. And then there are quick links. quick links are a way to quickly take you to somewhere so that you don't have to necessarily click on this link to get to this link. So if I wanted to begin editing an IEP or begin a reevaluation, all I have to do is click on those links and they'll take me to that spot within Achieve. It also will show the activity, and you can ignore the test links. Those are just for our testing purposes. The activity of this learner. So it'll show the individual IEP meeting, who were the requested participants, the agency, and the role. And then a user can easily add participants from there and print a meeting notice. And you'll notice too that as I go through screens, we really tried to reduce the scrolling because obviously in the current system, you scroll and scroll and scroll through along. So we tried to keep that to a minimum. So I'm going to go into the edit IEP. One of the things that we've heard a great deal from our testers out in the field is that the procedural safeguards will be great. Right now, they have to enter that information on a prior written notice that doesn't carry forward anywhere. Now they will enter that information within the profile. They'll say it was provided by the date, how it was provided, and if parents accepted. And then this information up here will automatically update based on the most recent, and that will carry forward to prior written notices. So they won't have to always re-enter that, if that makes sense. The date, I'm gonna actually take you through the PLAF page quickly here. So if I click on the PLAF page, clear at the bottom, we were talking about the intuitiveness and the completing one item and then something else shows up. So in this case, effective the disability, if I select yes here, then nothing else is required below that for effective disability. But if I select no, then I have to describe. So that please describe box doesn't just automatically show up unless it's required with that answer. Somebody had asked just a minute ago if, I believe, if fields would be required within the system so that people know what needs to be completed. There will be a red asterisk beside items that are required. And then if you click out of, so if I click in here and then I click out, it'll say field is required. So they'll have several prompts to alert them that those items are required. Plus there is an incomplete data report as well that's built in that will check to make sure all those functions, all those options have been filled out before they move on. All right. Special factors is a pretty intuitive item as well. If we go to communication as an example, you'll notice that my options change down here. It says communication and considerations. If I choose hearing, it's going to show hearing considerations. Let me make that a little bit larger for you. Sorry about that. Okay, here we go. So if I click on health, you'll notice my health considerations show a little bit larger. Hearing, they show here. And then if I click on, there will be links within the system like helper text or anything to help the user. There will be help text here and it'll say what impact is the learner primary, and it'll talk about spoken, signed, etc. And that changes based on what I've chosen. So for example, social emotional, you'll notice that this information 1 through 6 is changing. And if I click on at risk, this information displays. Some of this information comes from I3.
I3 is our online procedure manual.
Thank you, Barb.
Yeah.
I also struggle with learner and student, so I'm sorry if I'm mixing those up. We're trying to change to learner from student, and I've used student for so many years, so my apologies. Okay, there are various steppers within the system. So if I scroll back up here, and I apologize for the scrolling, once they get into an IEP, they can go back to the profile. They can go to the PLAF page, which is present levels page. They can go to the goals. Sorry, I've got blue text shown up there. Services and additional information. So as Barb said, you aren't tied to just enter information in one section before you can move on to another. So even though a field was required it wasn't requiring me to fill it out right now before I move on to another section. So that's another feature that we are very, very excited about. Okay, the services, I just wanted to share with you one thing here that, of course, we're also really excited about, sorry. Let me scroll here. So as we were talking about I3, the information system as for procedures, if I go into activities and supports and I click on activity or support, here is information again from that I3 system. So it'll show a helper text in regards to that. And some of that helper text we've also built in depending on where it is in the system, and some of it will come from I3.
And just to emphasize why that's important, we had an almost 800-page procedures manual that just over time developed. Well, once you have 800 pages and you make a change here, you don't know where else it is in that 800 pages. So by having our online system, we can make a change. Say we, for some reason, change the definition of activities and supports. We can make the change in I3 and it will automatically adapt into Achieve. We've been able to make that link so we can at least try to increase our consistency over time.
Good point, Barb. Thank you for mentioning that. Barb had also mentioned the tags and carrying information forward. So you'll notice there's a view IEP service tag. So if I had tagged something on the goals as an example, I could click on this IEP service tags and that information would display. And I didn't, so it's not going to show. And then there's also a banking functionality where users will be able to bank information. So if they have something that they use quite regularly for a learner, they can bank that information so that they can use it later. And that follows the user, not the learner. So they could use it on multiple different learners. And there's functionality where if you use 4 asterisks, that replaces the name of the learner so that they're not using the wrong name of the learner within an IEP or IFSP. One or a couple other functions. Barb had mentioned the data history. There's a data history link at the top of the learner management screen. And when you click on the data history link, it'll bring up this screen that shows assessment data. So this is where Barb said that there will be interaction with other systems, integration from other systems. So district-wide assessment, the ISASS and DLM, literacy screening, ELP 21 summative assessment, and that data will display here if there were any data, and I chose a student that there isn't any data. And then attendance and behavior will also display evaluation information. So previous evaluation information from the system will display, as well as progress monitoring. And then users will also be able to enter progress here. That was another functionality we really wanted to make sure that people weren't tied to go to a specific page within the system to be able to do something. So enter progress is multiple different places so that they have easy access to go in and enter progress, where right now they have to click through many screens to even get to the progress monitoring. One other item I wanted to mention really quickly is there is a documentation section, and this documentation section will eventually hold some of the archived information from the current system. So from that legacy system, those will be brought over to Achieve so that users will have easy access to view that information in Achieve. And that will be found under the documentation section. Okay. And Barb had mentioned electronic signatures. That is also built in within the family consent area and will be a part of the family portal as well.
Lisa, I'm going to just interrupt for a second and do it.
Thank you.
How much time do we have left?
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
And I was finished, Barb. I was just going to ask if anybody had questions. So I think I got through all the items that I wanted to cover.
With the documentation, you said that'd be from the legacy documents. Is that something the teacher puts in, or is that something that's coming in from the state, or how is that going to work?
Lisa's working mostly on that one. It will come behind the scenes. Teachers won't have to add anything. What we're concerned about is we have we keep records really until a student turns 27. And so those have been archived in the legacy system, and we want to be able to shut down the legacy system, honestly, before it breaks. So we're going to be bringing over all of anything that's in the current system, which was going to be the legacy system, will come into and be archived as a PDF in Achieve. So that means we can eventually completely shut down the legacy system.
When parents log in, what do they see?
They'll see the dashboard, very similar to what Lisa showed for teachers, but it'll only have the students that they have, have their student or students that are in there. You got it, Lisa? Yeah. So they would have a to-do list. They'll have a calendar. They'll have, I don't think it'll say my case list. Do you remember what it says, Lisa?
I do not recall, but it won't say my case list. My guess is it'll say my learners or children or, yeah, I'm not sure.
But otherwise, it'll be very much the same.
Mhm.
Georgia had mentioned earlier about communication. So if a parent reviews this, wants to send a message to the teacher, how does that work?
So we're still, there will be, so they still have the student information center or system. So like you would do with your geography teacher, they can enter that way. In this system, they could do a prompt or a push out that says, please contact me. But it wouldn't be an email. We don't want to repeat a system that already exists so that folks aren't inundated with it. So they can, or they could email them.
Could there be a text box for parent comment or?
We can consider it. We're still on the design stage of that. We'd definitely take that back to our stakeholder group, family engagement stakeholder group.
I'm making an assumption that you have professional development ready to roll out and plans for that.
We are in the process of doing that. We're looking at it in terms of, yes, 2 or 3 stages. We have a team of folks who've developed a sample letter for districts that they can send when the district goes to their go live. They can send out to all the parents describing this. We have a new IEP system, IEP IFSP system. Here's what you might anticipate, but please know that it's not changing any of the services. And then when it comes close to the time that family student data is going to be moved into Achieve, so probably the next IEP review, we also are developing a set of materials for the parent to prepare for. There are a couple of things in here that